Well, I heard it. I was shocked, but I wasn't surprised. Only because, you know, having been around Michael, and especially the choreography, and then watching later years, watching Billie Jean, and, you know, I knew the tremendous physical exertion involved in that choreography. And I also knew that they were preparing for a tour, and they were in a lot of rehearsal. And he wasn't young anymore, he was 50 years old, right? And I also had heard, I didn't know, but I heard there was a prescription drug problem, which can complicate heart rhythms and things like that. So when I heard it, I thought, you know, it's too bad because he might have made a comeback, but I know that he was, you know, courting a disaster, exerting himself that much probably. I mean, I'm not a doctor, but I wasn't surprised.
Did you see that same work ethic even as a little kid?
There was no doubt that the brothers were proficient at what they did, but I didn't see them as star quality. Of course, you know, we had a saying in those days, you can't pick a hit. You might be able to pick a stiff once in a while, but, and then even then you could be wrong, but nobody can pick a hit, they say. You can only try. But there was no doubt that Michael was the talent. He's only 12 years old. He wanted to play. Every time he had to do something, sing or try on a costume or whatever, he did it with the kid's reluctance, you know. And he wouldn't come on to you like the other boys would. You know, sometimes these acts will come on to you to make a good impression and see if you can help them media-wise or whatever. He never did that. He was always Mr. Cool. Until he got on stage and he'd knock your socks off, see? And even though he was a kid, he had, you know, sometimes when kids sing, you'll see it on Britain's Got Talent or America's Got Talent, they have a sound, but they're not hip yet in their minds. He was right away, you know, and it was unbelievable, really.
What was your main job with the Jackson?
Well,
what did you do?
I was kind of like a freelance guy. I was involved mostly in Hollywood, and I was working at Capitol Records a lot of the time, and for different publishing companies. But my specialty area was what we called in those days the youth market. And my mentor was a guy at Capitol called Fred Rice, 20 years older than I was. And I was maybe 30 or 28 or something like that. And he was in charge, and had been for years, of developing youth market recorded product for Capitol. So he had a certain flexibility. He could kind of do almost anything he wanted. He only reported to the president and didn't anybody else, you know. And so we had a lot of flexibility, and he gave me a lot of assignments and did some teen magazines and things like that. He called me one day and said, "Don, you better get down here because something's kind of hot, it's developing." So I went down to the tower. He said, you know, Berry Gordy has called. Now Berry Gordy, you know, head of Motown. We sat in Barry's office, you know, and he said, "Hello, Fred." He liked Fred, you know. He said, "Hello, Fred." I said, "Hey, Barry, who are you?" He says to me. I said, "I'm Don, Barry." And he said, gives me a limp handshake, you know. Anyway, so he said, "We've got this bunch of boys that we found in the Gary, Indiana area, and we think they can do something. And we want you guys to see if you can package them, right?" Now, what that meant didn't mean songs, because Berry had all the great songs, as you well know. You know, Motown had incredible material. And Miss Ross took the boys under her wing also. What they wanted us to do was the costumes for the stage and TV, and, you know, the live concerts and TV. And they wanted us to do the choreography, and they wanted us to do the fan magazine. So we did that. I edited that and wrote it and so on. Berry said, "Fine, let's do it, but come with me." So he takes us down to the basement of the big Motown building, right? And there's this big room down there, you know. He says, "You can do the choreography here," right? And I said, "Yes, sir." We put the word out that we knew a couple of choreographers who we liked, but we thought these boys are different. We hadn't really met them yet, but we'd heard about them, and Berry showed us some tape and stuff. And we thought we should find something good and fresh. So we put the word out, and somebody recommended, I can't remember who it was, this girl. She was just 18 years old. And so we interviewed her, down in that room, and she did a routine for us that knocked our socks off. And then she and Michael hit it off great, and I remember the day she taught him to do the moonwalk. That's how we got going, and one thing led to another. We got the costumes for them, and so you're seeing a lot of early Michael on the TV right now, on the news clips and stuff. That's pretty much us, those early ones.
Interacting with Michael Jackson when it comes to choreography and costumes, did you ever see anything then, or any conversations with him that would lead you to believe that dancing and the way Michael Jackson looked would end up being such a huge part of what made him such a star?
To recognize that takes a special talent. My partner had that talent. I didn't like the Doors at first, okay? I mean, that shows you how stupid I can be, you know? But there was something. I mean, the first time we saw Paula work out with Michael, boy, you knew that kid had it, man. There was no problem. I mean, she'd do it once and he'd do it, you know? And without training or anything, you know, it was just, there it is, you know. So that was kind of exciting, and that portended a very interesting future, obviously. Yeah. I think what was unique about them is, at least it's thought, and I tend to agree, is that they were the bridge between the black and the white market. They, even Motown, with all of its black stars and everything, and the big sales they had, still were mostly black audiences, but somehow Michael, the boys were okay, but the boys didn't have a lot of following compared to Michael, even though he was so young. Got to be there in the morning when she says hello to the world. Well, that's dynamite, man, And the way he did it was dynamite. And he was a kid, but he knew, see? And that's the way with all geniuses. They don't need training. They just know. Nobody taught Mick Jagger to do what he did. You know what I'm saying? They don't need teaching. They know. They just know. And Michael had that quality. I mean, he'd show him something and bang, like that, And his voice teacher, and not teacher, but his arranger, if you want to call it, or producer of his tracks. We didn't have anything to do with that, but we sometimes be there. So we knew what was going on and get pictures and stuff. Quincy Jones, you know that name? Man, I mean, it's just, he was amazed at this kid, He'd say, Mike, can you have this? He'd say, I know what you want. There it was, It's unbelievable, really. Genius, really.